because what you, the unsung heroes in the wastewater industry, do matters. Every Wednesday, join me, Suzanne Chin Taylor, the DooDoo Diva, a longtime veteran of the wastewater, trenchless, and civil infrastructure industry, as I interview guests who are making an impact on how we manage and operate systems for conveying and treating wastewater. I'll also be speaking with representatives of organizations that are utilizing disruptive or new technologies, and executives who are going to share how to be successful and sustainable in our vital industry. So whether you want to learn about the latest trends in technology in treatment or trenchless, gain tips on training and retaining great talent, or simply how to be more efficient, productive, or profitable, this podcast is for you. Today, we're going to be visiting with Jacob Trapani, Vice President of BLD Services and the current President of NASCO, the National Association of Sewer Service Contractors. Jake's firm, BLD Services, is the manufacturer and installer of the Service Connection Seal Plus lateral, SCS plus L, cured in place pipe CIPP lining system, which is a CIPP lateral lining system that is installed from the mainline sewer with or without a cleanout. BLD currently has over 30 crews performing trenchless technology rehabilitation across the eastern United States and is one of the largest lateral lining companies in North America. Thank you for being with us today, Jake.
Thank you, Susan.
Jake, I know that you've been in the industry a long time with an illustrious career spanning decades that started with In Situ Form, a household name in our industry for CIPP lining. And so for the purposes of today, I'd like to focus on lateral lining, since that is now your specialty and what your business is focused on, and to share with us some of the advancements in technology you've seen over the years and what you can share with us about that.
Well, BLD Services is in the cured in place lateral lining business. It acquired the lateral lining process of In Situ Form back in 2009. Since then, it started out with 3 crews and has advanced to 30 crews as we sit today.
Great. So what have you seen to be some of the largest advancements in CIPP lining, especially as far as it goes for laterals, and why do you find it important? What do you think are the top things and the benefits for the asset owner as well as the installer?
The biggest advancements have been in the material and also the equipment to actually perform the cleaning, the TV, and of the lateral to begin with. In years in the past, the technology wasn't available to even clean or TV laterals from the main line without the use of a clean out or an access point at the upper end of the home. Today's advancements come a long way. With robotic cutters and cameras to have that availability from the main line. The material advancements today have come a long way as well, and the flexibility to going around multiple turns, 90s, offsets, and many things of that nature to facilitate many more laterals today than you'd have been able to accomplish in the past. So the installation process and the way we perform it today and the materials used are allowing us to do many, many more laterals than we could today than we have done in the past.
How does that benefit the installer? Obviously speed, but let's talk a little bit about how that helps the asset owner.
Well, the asset owner, one is in the past, I would say, just take a number of 100. And if a municipality says, here's 100 laterals to go do, in the past, you maybe only do 40, 50% of those laterals, 40 or 50 laterals. Today, with the technology and the cleaning equipment, the TV equipment, and also the flexibility in the different materials, and just the sheer fact that we've done more today than we've ever done, we're upwards of 90+% of those laterals. So the benefit is that the municipality receives a huge benefit, that they don't have to do as much digging, traditional open cut on a lateral that you could potentially rehabilitate by cured in place process. So it's a huge benefit to the municipality in that sense, that they can do a lot more and much more predictable.
Now, as far as for the installers, how has the advancement of laterals from the main, how does it help the installers?
Well, from an installer perspective, it helps tremendously. It's the easeability, more predictability of actually getting the pipe cleaned and TV'd and also installed. Most of the guys that are trained out there that are doing cured in place lining laterals, it's kind of a niche business, so they kind of know what not to do and what to do. But the nice thing about having these technologies and advancements with the installer is the fact that they are much more predictable. You know what you can go do on a routine basis, and it helps out tremendously.
Lateral lining as a whole has always been viewed as something as the property owner's responsibility. And in speaking to you before we met today, I learned of some cities that you've been working with that are now beginning to use public funds to address these laterals that belong to the property owners. And do you see this as an ongoing trend? Do you think this is going to get more traction for the industry and approach for cities as a whole going forward?
Absolutely. That's a great question. As we continue to focus more on cured in place laterals and the lateral market and the source of I&I that's coming through laterals, more municipalities and owners are taking responsibility of just not their lateral, but maybe even the homeowner's lateral. I think everybody's recognizing today that the amount of I&I that's coming in through a lateral is huge. And the benefits of repairing that is becoming bigger and bigger. There are many different programs that people are taking on, which we'll get later on when you're talking about Jefferson County with major comprehensive rehab, City of Columbus, Ohio, taking eminent domain of the lateral. But there's many different processes that are out there and programs that many municipalities are focusing a lot more on the private side and not just what they particularly own, but the private side as well.
Well, since you mentioned the Ohio and Jefferson County, could you speak to me about that, about how Ohio took that eminent domain and what was the result of that? What pushed them to move in that direction? And are you aware of the steps that they had to take that eminent domain just for the purposes of that time that they were going to perform that rehabilitation, how that worked?
Sure. It was a major undertaking by the city. The city recognized that to make these repairs and to make the repairs on the private side, they needed to take ownership and eminent domain of that portion of the lateral. Once they took ownership of that, they're in a sense went ahead and made the rehabilitation or did the repairs that were necessary to stop the I&I. It was a major undertaking, but the results are showing in a positive way because of the fact they're reducing I&I in these particular areas by 80 to 90%. Again, as I stated, major undertaking to go to each homeowner, explain to them. They did a very good public speaking approach and kind of got a little video out there telling people what was going to go on, what was going to happen, to really give them a full understanding of what they could expect once this took place. But again, once they've actually put this in place, took the responsibility of the lateral, made the proper repair that was needed, the results are shining.
Had a great conversation with Hazen and Sawyer. You mentioned Jefferson County a few moments ago, that the county itself decided to take an entire system approach to mitigation of I&I, understanding that, yes, it's wonderful that we've done our mainline CIPP lining, but it hasn't removed enough of the I&I. So what have you seen in coming in as a contractor, working with them as far as including the laterals as part of the mitigation process? How has that helped them? And is that something you would encourage other cities to take a look at as an approach?
Absolutely. Jefferson County has been in I guess, a consent decree since many years ago and have lined millions of feet of mainline sewer and have rehabilitated a lot of manholes over the past 15, 20 years. They're still seeing a number of overflows in their system. And over the last 3 to 5 years with Hazen and Sawyer, doing some investigation and looking at some studies, obviously found that laterals was a major source of this I&I and creating these overflows, even though tremendous amounts of rehabilitation has been done. So their new approach of the comprehensive approach to go in and do the holistic system. Now, again, they are not repairing the private side. They still haven't quite accomplished the private side yet, but they are repairing and doing rehabilitation to what they own, which is to the property line. Since they've taken on this program, they've actually had some pilot areas that have worked out really well, where they've seen tremendous pump run times decrease, energy bills go way down, The number of overflows in these areas have just deceased, went away. So since then, they've actually been very proactive in looking at other areas. And now any program they do, when they're looking at a complete neighborhood or a pump station area, they're doing a comprehensive rehab, looking at not just manholes, not just main lines, but also the laterals as well.
Can you explain what is meant by Blindshot CIPP and what that entails?
A Blindshot CIPP, I guess in our terminology and industry technology, is basically an installation that's done without the need of an access point at the upper end, whether it be a clean out, in a basement, open pit, or some nature of that sort, to where you do not have an access to the upper end. So the Blindshot came in a way, the name came in when you're actually doing the installation from the main line up toward the home. There's no access point or open point, so it's kind of blind. So that's where the Blindshot came into play, or at least the terminology came into play.
Can you help our viewers understand the various types of curing processes and the pros and cons of each?
Sure. There's many different curing processes today. BLD uses an ambient cure system. So in a sense, we don't use any hot water or steam or UV or light cure to basically cure our product. Is a true ambient system. There's also a steam cure system, a UV system, or LED system. All of them have its pluses and minuses, pros and cons to those curing processes. In today's technology, in today's world, the UV and the LED is kind of the new coming thing that's out there just to ensure a cure. BLD has used an ambient system. The strong pros about those systems is it will cure. Eventually it will cure. It's over time, and it's going to cure no matter what, underwater, in the presence of water, around water, or things of that nature, which we deal with every day in our sewer system. With a steam cure system, the pros and cons are steam is good. It gets very hot, but you have to have an exit point. You have to have an exhaust system to where you got, basically have to exit that steam out. So either through a clean out or some entry point on the other end, and where some municipalities line without a clean out to do that Blindshot we talked about earlier. So that process comes a little henceed there, or tough to deal with when you're working with the steam cure process. The UVs and LEDs are kind of, not say so much new in the market, but depending on when you're talking about a cured in place lateral from the main line up toward the property line, anywhere between 30 to 60 to 90 feet, and curing that with UV cure and LEDs are a challenge, and those technologies are coming around more and more each and every day today, but they're very good technologies that are out there and viable.
So each thing has its own pros and cons depending on the application.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, I think it's more of what the installer is comfortable with, and also the application you're dealing with. So there are, like I said, competing processes, cure in place processes that use a UV or an LED system, but they're limited on what their capabilities are and how far they can go up the lateral, where you install from, things of that nature. So all of them have their pros and cons.
Can you explain the difference between when you're lining from the main into the lateral versus when a lining takes place on the property owner's side for the house lateral from a clean out?
There's many different installation processes that come from the main line. From the main line, you actually would enter manholes that are typically in the street or the easement, but that's the access point that you would enter into that main line. And then you would actually install from the main line up toward the home. And again, to a point of an access point, clean out, or designated area that the municipality or the rehab process is going to. So kind of non-destructive, everything's done kind of completely remote from the main line. When you look at an installation that's done from a clean out or an access point up toward the home, back toward the main line, typically an access point's needed, a clean out's needed. You're more in a homeowner's property of that nature that's sitting on their front yard or somewhere, whatever that access point is at. And that installation process is only done from the lateral. So it does not have a connection seal at the main, where a main line installation from the main line up would have a connection seal.
So if a city can only do to the part that they own, how would you recommend that they work with the property owners to encourage them to be part of that solution, that, you know, they're taking care of part of it, but getting the property owner to agree to, all right, I'll do my part of it too. If they can't take eminent domain, or they don't have the means, the financial means to do the entire line, how could they work with the city to do their part from the clean out down to where they can do the lining?
Yep. I think that's a tough question because of the difference in what the municipality owns. Some municipalities own to the right of way, some just own to the connection. So the homeowner's piece can vary drastically, you know, from the house to the property line, or from the house all the way to the main line. With the different programs that are out there, or potential programs, one is, you've seen one where people are buying and selling homes at the active sale of a home. You need to video the lateral just to make sure the lateral is intact and in good shape prior to the sale of the home. There's insurance programs that are out there that are working, that also, once the lateral is videoed and looked at, it can be rehabilitated as well. But I think the main thing is really just having a champion at the city level, understanding their problems, understanding the amount of I&I and infiltration that's coming in through these laterals. And once you come up with a proper fix and a way to rehabilitate these laterals, and seeing the results are getting between pump run times, energy bills, overflows, things of that nature. Obviously, as you know, working with every individual homeowner has its own challenges as well. So some municipalities shy away from that because of the fact that it's just that many more problems they would have to deal with. And some people are taking it head on. But I do strongly encourage municipalities to look at the private side. Many of them are looking at it just to see what the source of the I&I is coming in. Some can do stuff about it, some can't. But I do actually highly encourage that don't look just at the piece they own, but look at the homeowner side as well, and maybe partner up with them in some type of buyback program, fix it for them, let them pay it back through sewer bills or things of that nature.
So where do you see the acceptance of lateral lining, the entire line, becoming the city's responsibility completely? And do you see this as a viable solution for cities to eliminate most of their I&I?
Absolutely. The benefit the city would get from one is actually making a good connection seal at the lateral and the main, lining it up again to the access point or property line, or to whatever, you know, ownership they particularly have. The more they engage and the more they look at the private side, the homeowner side, and doing a complete, comprehensive and holistic approach to rehabilitation, they're going to see the huge benefits of reducing I&I. Right now, a lot of studies show that even after mainline and manholes have been done, 40 up towards of 80% of I&I is still coming in from the lateral lines. The lateral lines are more accessible because they're shallow. They run under drain line systems, run under ditches. So they're much more, I would say, accessible to I&I issues, especially in rainfalls and things of that nature. And they see the direct impact into the system. A lot of times when people do put cleanouts in and or access points at the upper end, they need to be careful to make sure they do a proper cleanout, that homeowner can't come back later and make it a yard drain or hit it with a lawnmower or something of that nature, opening up a 4 or 6 inch hole in the yard, creating more I&I than what you had originally before you actually did the rehabilitation. So the use of a cleanout's good. It's not needed in every case. And in most cases, it's not recommended. But again, if it's ever used, it just needs to be the right type and the right style that doesn't create a homeowner creating some other kind of drain system with it, or again, inadvertently hitting it with a lawnmower, breaking it off and creating bigger I&I problems than what you had to begin with.
We know that one size doesn't fit all when it comes to trenchless technology. So can you share with us where this kind of lateral lining that we've been talking about is best suited, and what it may not be the ideal fit for?
I think the best suited is obviously following other cured in place technologies. So after the main line's done, it's best fit to go in and rehabilitate the laterals at the same time you're doing that, or shortly thereafter doing the main lines, and then coming back in and doing the manhole. There are some people that are using cured in place lateral lining without doing the rehabilitation of a main line. It's not kind of highly recommended due to the fact that if you went back later on and tried to rehabilitate that main line, you'd have some potential issues with either nicking or cutting a hole in that open service at that point in time.
Okay.
So, for the best size fits all, in a sense, is that there are some ways and some approaches that I think work much better than others, especially when you get lining from the main line, lining all the way up to the access point or homeowners property.
So, Jacob, as far as cities, and would like to get your pearls of wisdom here, if you were to share some advice with a city that may be considering doing this type of lateral lining from the main to reduce I&I, what would it be?
Well, first of all, I would definitely recommend the most engineers and city owners to start looking at their laterals. A lot of focus is done on main lines because obviously if a main line collapses, they have multiple people that back up. If one lateral collapses, it's only one homeowner. But again, you got to realize that the lateral and that main line was put in roughly at the same time. So during, SSES and evaluation periods, we're encouraging highly the engineers and also owners to look at their laterals, at least investigate them, see what condition they're in, see what what they're looking like, what is the best rehabilitation process and methods that are out there to help them with their I&I source. So I think the first step truly is to getting into the, again, evaluation part of it to even see what they do have, but highly encourage them to look at some type of rehab. Not just in main lines, not just in manholes, but obviously in the lateral piece itself. We know it's much more difficult, kind of like that, I use an analogy of a snowflake. There's not one lateral that's all the same, just like a snowflake. So none of them all the same. All of them are different. They're all difficult. They all have a homeowner attached with them, things of that nature. So it becomes a little bit more difficult to deal with. And we know some municipalities tend to shy away because of that, again, issue or potential problem that's out there. But in most cases, it's highly encouraged to kind of go out there and reevaluate and look at where you stand with your laterals.
Well, I want to thank you for being here with us today and sharing all of your knowledge. I hope whoever's listening will be able to take something away from this to help them make some educated decisions for I&I reduction using this technology. So if you'd like some more information about BLD and what we've been speaking about today, please get in touch with Jacob at BLD Services. Their email address is info@bldllc.net, or you can visit their website at bldllc.net. Thank you for spending time with us today. We hope to see you again soon. Thanks for joining me, the DooDoo Diva, on this week's episode of Smells Like Money. Be sure to subscribe to the show so you'll never miss an episode. And while you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or simply tell a friend about the show, because that would help us out a lot too. If you're an industry expert and would like to be considered as a guest for the show, email guest@smellslikemoneymedia.com. Tell us a little bit about yourself and the topics you'd like to talk about, and we'll be in touch. For more information about our family of marketing, international business development, and workforce training companies dedicated to the empowerment and education of our industry, call us at 760-217-8010 or email me at raven@creativeraven.com. Until next week, a big shout out to all my industry friends and those who will be. You're my superheroes.